Hey everybody, this is Perch, and Joe, it's been quite a long time since we've talked, but glad to see you again.
Yes, yeah, it has been. Was Cullen Bunn the last one we did
A little
together?
bit Colin Bun. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
been a while. But we're coming back to a legend here. I mean, and I don't use those words slightly. We're here with Jim Starlin. Jim, how are you?
Obviously old if I get to legend status. Okay.
I
It's a euphemism for ancient. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so fair enough. Okay, shoot, that explains some things earlier. I think, look, I'm really excited to talk to you. I was a comic retailer for about 30 years. Obviously, like a lot of people, huge fan of your work, but for a lot of reasons, and I think we'll get into it, but just what you contributed to changing up the genre from just very, very typical superhero books into a lot more. It expanded so much. So really thankful you're giving us the time today.
Yeah. We came in at a time when there was a changeover. All the 1940s artists were all retiring, and there was a whole bunch of us new guys coming in. It was an interesting spell.
Well, I'd love to talk a little about that, but what I also want to do, make sure we get it right out the gate. You have a project, and I wanted to put that for people who come in for 10 minutes and leave for some dumb reason, rather than stay for the whole thing. But tell us about this project that you got.
We have collected all the Breed stories, which was my horror opus that I did, over a decade and a half, maybe 2 decades period. It was broken up. We started off at Malibu and ended up being finished off at Image.
Yeah.
It was interesting project. It was something a little different. I wanted to do some horror. It ended up going back into the cosmic at the end, but
Yeah.
still had a monster running around in the cosmic. So
Nice. I love, for a lot of people who are casually aware of your work. They think of you. I mean, there's big characters, and actually, I did want to ask you, later, but I'll throw it out now. For a long time, you were saying Thanos was your favorite character, and I saw a number. But I'm curious, with all of the him being in the movies and all the attention. I mean, they really gave that character a lot of attention the last 10 years. Is that still the case? Is that still your favorite character?
well, when the Infinity War came out, they had this website you'd go for, and you could find out if you had survived the snap or not. I went on, didn't. So he's no longer my favorite son. Dreadstar is.
Okay.
He's the ungrateful son. Thanos is. So
That does not seem kind for everything you
no, I think he's a high breed at this point.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. So people know you for these larger life characters that you made to the big screen and a lot of the cosmic stuff. But Breed, like you said, it was your adventure into horror, and I remember, of course, the comic very well. And you put something in, kind of a little teaser that I wanted to get you a comment on, because it dawned on me. I hadn't thought about it this way before. While when you started Breed, the advent of computers doing the coloring and all that had taken hold. And I think a lot of people kind of forget about what a major shift that was in the creation of comics and the reading them. Could you expand on that for us?
When I started off in comics, we had like 72 color choices. We had 25% of any color, 50 and 100. And you figure out whatever. And there was no black plate. I mean, the blacks were solid. If you wanted a black, you had to put a zipatone, which was a whole process in itself, which thank God is no longer around.
Yeah.
Modern conveniences have their spot. So they just before the computers hit, they added 75% and the black plate. So we had a little bit of expansion when I started off on Dreadstar, but by the time Breed came along, I got to turn this phone off. I forget. By the time Breed came along, the computers were there, and Image Comics was doing, Joe Chito over there was just doing some incredible stuff on the computers as far as coloring goes.
Yeah.
And it opened up a whole, I color everything now myself. I just love the process. It's such an addition to the story. everybody in the process has a point of view. I mean, the writer is giving you the story, the narration, the dialogue. The artist is the penciler, is the constructor. He is the designer. He sets up the pace of the story. The inker provides the style, and then when you get to the colorist, that's the mood. And that's my most fun part of the job at this point. I just love sitting down there and doing that final touch on it. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
This whole change really hit with, computers doing that, and now of course we went through the, traditional drawing versus digital, and we're still, the comic industry is still struggling with the idea of digital as a distribution method, and that seems to, in the U.S. anyway. In Japan, they've figured that part out, but we're still going through these changes. But to have this workout, and you're doing this through Zoop, this collected omnibus, and first of all, major amount of stories, and also done through this change in how comics are created. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, the whole crowdfunding thing has changed the game entirely. I no longer have to deal with either Marvel or DC. Keep control of everything, and it's a bit more of a process. We have to do this promotional stuff beforehand, but the freedom it gives us, the Dreadstar books that had come out from Omnibus and now Monkey Wrench. I'm more proud of that work than anything I've done so far. I think the stuff I'm doing on Dreadstar right now is superior to the Infinity War and stuff like that. It's a much more cosmic base. It's certainly a much more nicer looking book than anything I have produced before.
Yeah.
Just have nothing else. The computer, once again, the coloring in that. I can spend a day just coloring up a page. It takes me a day to pencil one. And, I'll spend a day just coloring it again, too. I know I'm not a production line. I would start with, I've been working at Marvel doing this. They want things out much faster. And, but this way, I can be a real artist. I can really do what I want to do and produce the end results that I want to see.
It's nice. It's great.
It's so awesome that and I do think, I have to imagine that being this close to it, being able to really produce and oversee it. I mean, you're your own quality control. You're your own complete owner of all of this stuff going out. So it is the truest vision we can get from you is through this method. Is there anything you wish that the kind of crowdfunding that it had, is there any one piece that you still find needs another bit of evolution, or is it really just you're exploring it at this point?
The publishers, Chris over at Monkey Wrench, handles the majority of the crowdfunding mechanisms. I come in and do the interviews, I'm producing the artwork and that, but he's actually still doing the business end of it and that. So he would probably be a better one to have on and ask that question to. Me, I'm just enjoying the freedom of it. And, the fact that we can go back and pull up something like Breed. We were talking about computers before. If you go through the run of Breed, you can see how the coloring and technology has improved as we were going through that. The early books, which I'm most proud of the inking on because I was doing it all with a crow quill and a brush, they're the beginning of the color stuff, the color of the computerized color. And so they're basically a very nice looking comic, where later on we start adding things that I could do in Strata Pro, Photoshop. It gets more bizarre as it went along, and to the end where, I'm pretty much have, by the time we get to the Breed 3, I've pretty much mastered what I'm going to do with the coloring and the computer on how to handle it. I think I've improved more on the Dreadstar stuff afterwards, but this is the good gestation. So it's a way of looking back at it and seeing where we've been and how we got to where we are now. It's a transitional project, basically.
Nice. I have a question for Steve Apollo here. We had a chat. I've seen you around before, and the last time I saw you was at Martha Thomas's Hanukkah party. So I want to ask you a question I don't think any other interviewer is going to ask you as you're promoting this book. So when it comes to Jewish deli, do you go for what's your go-to? Is it the turkey, the roast beef, the corned beef, the pastrami? Like, what's your strategy?
Donuts.
The donuts. Okay, yeah, no, those are good.
Donuts at that party were terrific. I don't know where she got them, but they were everything you could imagine. They were orgasmic in their quality.
Oh yeah, did you have a favorite donut that you had there, or was it just like little bits of everything?
I suppose there probably was that I liked the most, but I gluttoned out so badly that I walked out of there in a daze and remember very little of that party entirely.
That's fair.
My diabetes just took over, and I wandered the streets for 3 days afterwards.
What else?
No, that's for sure. And I wanted to touch on
Rikers Island.
I wanted to touch on too, since DC just re-released in the last few months the what if you weren't a monster and didn't kill off Jason Todd variant issue.
Wow.
So I kid. Because everyone, it turned out pretty well, I think, even though I believe, well, people like Red Hood, it's Jason Todd, and all that stuff. So I'm curious, what, because there's been different interviews, there's been different talks, over the years, and since I have you here, what was it like working with Denny at that time? And I know you've talked about it here and there, but like just in terms of, now that, he's passed, he's really made his mark on Batman. Like, what was that time period like?
It was kind of free flowing. When I started writing Batman, it was because Denny asked me, and he said he needed a fill-in issue.
Yeah. And
so I wrote him a story. I think it actually was the third one that actually appeared. But then he said, I need another one. And by the time I got 4 or 5 of them done, I said, by the way, am I a regular Batman writer now? And he went, we'll talk about that. In the meantime, we need this graphic now, this miniseries, and that's where we went off on the cult at that point.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting. He was always forcing me to put Robin into the stories because I didn't like the idea of Robin going off dressed in black and gray and fighting crime and bringing along a teenager that you put in primary colors.
So he could be
he's missing is a target on his head and a tattoo on his butt that says "Shoot the kid."
Yeah, exactly what he was thinking.
So when they finally, there was a time when DC was going to do an age book, and they put out, being the sensitive souls that they are, they put out a suggestion box into the thing in the office and said, give us your opinion on who should get AIDS, and we'll do an AIDS book. And so I stuffed it with Robin.
Oh, wow.
And they recognized my handwriting. They threw all my Robin votes out, and Jim Olsen ended up winning. So then they found out, they were going to kill off Jimmy Olsen with AIDS. But then they found the actor who played Jimmy Olsen was gay, and that freaked them all out, and the whole project was abandoned at that. So, but I've always made it very clear that I do not like Robin. I did not want to do anything, and when they gave me a chance to kill him, I thought, I know what my readership is. I do have to do the 2 pages where he lives, but I know the ghouls will get rid of him. The comic book fan ghouls will kill him off. So when they called me up, they asked me if I wanted to do this revisal of DC contacted me first to see if I wanted to do this If Robin Lives story. And I was tried to be really nice about it, but all I could think of was, I couldn't wait to kill this guy off. Why would I want to do him again now, 10, 20, 20 years later? I still think he's the dumbest character in comics.
That's fair. I like it. So we've heard lots of comic creators with, a particular character they don't like, or, there's just somebody somewhere in the kind of the overall collection of characters. But you took the extra step to try to vote to give him AIDS.
Yeah, well, that was another thing. I didn't get a chance to, I was down in Mexico when they did the phone thing. So I never got a chance to call in and get them done.
Yeah, that's a shame.
No, that's fair. I think I want to say it was either Marv Wolfman or George Perez wrote something up about how it might have been Marv that part of why they hated Robin so much was when they were a kid reading comics. You could look into the future and like, oh, I'm 8 now, but like Batman's like in his 30s, he's an adult. Maybe one day if I work really hard, I could be really cool. And then it's like, what? Now I got to be that cool in like 2 years? That's never going to happen. Like, so like there's a lot of reasons to hate Robin is where I'm going with it.
Well, Gotham was always supposed to be Chicago. I mean, Metropolis is New York, Chicago is Gotham. Yeah. Whoever designed that costume never spent a winter in Chicago. Yeah. He froze his little gonads off. He would have never been able to produce drop progeny down the line.
I mean, sliding down a pole would have just ripped the thighs right open.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons not to like him.
Yeah.
Well, plus he had Namor's bathing suit on. What was that about?
There was some, you had to imagine somewhere in a studio somewhere, people are piecing that one together, and they're like, who's got cool pants? Namor.
Yeah, let's put them underneath this red and yellow thing.
Yeah.
It's Namor, isn't it?
Namor. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It may be Namor. It changes. I've been corrected. I know Shang-Chi is pronounced also. So
yeah,
don't listen to me.
You don't have a lot of experience with Shang-Chi, so
no, not at all. But what you do have a lot of experience with is talking about death in your comics. You cover that quite a bit with some of these different characters, and you have some like really thoughtful sort of takes on that topic, and have for decades. I'm wondering what got you to want to, sort of wax poetically about death in comics, for quite a lot of your career?
I'm drawing a blank on who the writer is who once said, all true stories end in death. And that's true, a good deal of the history in comics up into the 60s and that, nobody ever died. Secondary characters died and that, but none of the main characters, and they were always on life and death situations. And I just couldn't believe that everyone would be always that lucky. And so when there were chances like with Robin and Death of Captain Marvel, we sort of jumped at the chance to explore that area. I'd been doing a little bit of it with Thanos and his relationship with death, his necrophilia. But, they wouldn't let me put that in the comics, but that was basically what it was. Yeah. So, I don't know. It just seemed to be an area that needed exploring. A lot of times there were things that, I did a run on the Silver Surfer, and it never occurred to anybody that the Silver Surfer had been helping Galactus kill off millions and billions of people over the years. I mean, he was aiding and abetting murder on a mass scale, and I just couldn't believe that nobody had ever done a story about that before. So I just felt, okay, this is where I'm going to go. This is an easy one to do.
These comics, though, I would say they more than just strike a chord. I mean, a lot of the runs you did, and it's fine if you look at it all in once. I mean, you did the death of Captain Marvel, you did the death of Jason Todd, you did the Infinity Gauntlet. You have stories that are massive, parts that everybody remembers. Anybody who's been collecting comics for any length of time winds up hitting your work. Even things that
I'm always surprised when they find out I did it for some reason. Did you look at the cover?
I can't explain that one. But yeah. I mean, you're well, okay. So one that I think people are maybe a little less aware of, but you are in the cover, is the Heroes for Hope book that you helped put together.
Yeah, me and Bernie worked on that together.
And that's another one that just, I think, has, even though it kind of came out of cycle, it wasn't part of an ongoing series, obviously, it's still one that, everyone who was collecting comics, reading comics during that time period remembers that. I mean, I still have people, years and years later come up and they remember that as a core issue. But you wound up creating some of the most major stories for both the big two. You did the KGB storyline. I mean, you put together.
I was surprised that he survived. He was a one-off. He was just a throw out.
He became one of the characters, villains that people tended to gravitate the most to. And
I got a royalty for him on the Batman Superman thing that they threw him in the background. I found that okay. That's strange.
It's nice when you get a check out of surprise versus the other where you're expecting a check and you don't get one.
Oh, I had both ways.
Yeah, I can imagine. But I think, does it, I think a lot of people work in comics for a long period of time trying to make their mark. And I don't know if I'm asking the question the right way. It feels like you have several throughout your career that people will remember and have gone on to. I mean, the Infinity Gauntlet became the basis behind billion-dollar movies.
Yeah, I got lucky in that regard, the fact that some of the kids who read this stuff grew up to be very talented individuals who influence. I tend to think of myself as one of the most lucky cartoonists around. I mean, there have been bad spells. I mean, there were points where Marvel had money problems and they decided to just stop paying the artists for a while. There was a spell where I was eating mustard sandwiches to stay alive. But at the same time, we got the movie stuff, and I get to go to the Guardians and the Avengers movies, and I mean, I've had it pretty good in the long run, even though there have been hills and valleys.
Sure.
Yeah. One of the other things you also created, I believe, along with Len Wein, was Mongol and Warworld, which DC tapped into for a pretty big run recently with Philip K. Johnson and Action Comics. And then I believe there was an animated movie.
Here, they just sent me a check on the movie, yeah.
Yeah, so
hearing that Mongol may be in the Superman movie too.
That's it seems, I mean, I don't know if that's confirmed yet, but it feels confirmed. It's a lot of people are saying it, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest it will be. More checks.
Maybe they'll call me for a cameo. I'd love to do a DC cameo.
There you go. If hopefully some of James Gunn's people are listening then. But I'm curious with that. What was what was it like working with Len Wein, again, another legend who's since passed? But what was that collaboration like? Because obviously the way they credit it then is, scripter, and then you were the illustrator. But what kind of collaboration went into that?
Actually, very little, to tell you the truth. Julie Schwartz, who was the editor, really didn't trust me to write anything because I was writing everything in longhand. I didn't have a computer or a typewriter. And so I was plotting out all the Superman stories I was doing. And then there was a number of people. It wasn't just Len. I mean, Paul Levitz did one. Mark Wolfman wrote a couple. I mean, the first Teen Titans book was a backup in one of these Superman stories that Marv wrote the front and the backup. And then it was kind of fun. On some of the later ones, we did talk a little bit, and then when he would come in with me when I brought in the layouts, because I wasn't doing full pencils. They were having Romeo Tangle tighten it up. And we were doing the Spectre story, and it's basically Superman meets God.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of neglected to tell Julie this. And when we brought it in, and Glenn looked through it, he went, "Did you tell Julie about this?" And I went, "Well, not exactly." And he goes, "Well, he's not going to like this." And I said, "Well, let's take a look. Let's just go in. Let's not say anything. We'll put it in there." And, Julie went through the pages and went, "He meets God?" And I went, "Did we talk about this?" And I sort of went, and the Len's over in the corner, shitting a brick. And then when we came out, he said, "I guess it worked out." And, it turned out to be one of our more popular books. So it all worked out well. But it was kind of fun.
Just proves you got to bluff people.
Well, just, a nod is not the same as out and out lying.
That's true. You could be just saying, "I've heard you. I'm just nodding. I'm not agreeing to what you're saying, but I'm listening to you intently."
It's too late. You got to get it inked. We got a deadline anyhow.
Yeah. But and that's you from as the artist, but you've written a lot of stuff that others have drawn. As an artist, was there any one or maybe a couple of artists you collaborated with as a writer that you feel really got what you were doing more than anyone else? Or
well, I worked mostly with Len and with Bernie Wrightson and Lip, and I was working with them together at the same time. I mean, that was the point where I was doing more writing than anything else. And Ron and I had very much the same background. We were both Kirby fans. Our sense of layouts were very much the same. So when I wrote something down in the script, I knew that I could see what it was going to be like when Ron drew it. And then I was working with Bernie, who had just the opposite visual references and that I did. I mean, he came from illustration, Trey Frazetta, Roy Krinkle. Mm-hmm. Those were his gods. And so it never came out the way I envisioned it, but it always worked beautifully.
Yeah.
And, and Bernie was a fun one, an odd one to work with in some ways, because you had to go over to his place. The only way you could work with him on anything at length is go over and look at this stuff about once a week with him and go, "You're doing a terrific job. Keep it going, gush over the stuff." And he would stay with it. And we did The Cult up at DC, and big hit. I mean, it was DC's best-selling book that year. And so we came back in and said, "Let's do a sequel." And Paul Levitt said, "No, we want Bernie to do a story with Len Wein, a Swamp Thing story." And the trouble was that Len lived in L.A. and Bernie lived in New York. And so they got 10-page, and I said, "This is not going to work, guys. You should do this Batman story with me." And they said, no, we'll put that on the back burner. And so Bernie got 10 pages of the Swamp Thing job, and he quit. He just said, "I'm bored."
Yeah.
And they were so mad at DC about that they said, "Well, we're not going to do this Batman job." So I went and converted the Batman job into a Punisher job, and that became Punisher POV over at Marvel.
Yeah.
Now, this basically was supposed to be the Reverend Blackstone's henchman story, going on from there. But
I want to point out, by the way, the of all the astonishing things I've heard, not just today but all year, I want to point out that DC said, "No, we don't want to do another Batman book."
Yeah.
Just Sorry.
No, that would never work right now.
What different times? Yeah. But actually, not only that, you had a successful comic, the ability to do a sequel to Batman, and DC's like, nah, Swamp Thing.
Well, back then at that point, DC was it was a strange place. There was all the editors had their fiefdoms.
Right.
When we were doing the Cosmic Odyssey and the Weird, which was another story I did with Bernie. It was really difficult getting to let people let you use their characters. In the Weird, we were supposed to have the Justice League, which we got off easy enough, but then we were supposed to have Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to be the other character that got taken over by the macrolites at the end.
Yep.
And so, okay, that didn't happen. So let's use Wonder Woman. We'll do Wonder Woman. But the editors of Wonder Woman wouldn't let us use it. We went down the line until we got to some character from Infinity Incorporated or whatever the story is called, Nuclon.
Yep.
Who I had no idea who he was. I had never read a Nuclon book. And suddenly I had to put this guy into the story. And, it worked out. And Bernie, drew him okay. But, it just seemed like why did you make it so hard?
Kind of there is a distinct popularity difference between a Wonder Woman and Nucleon.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of Nucleon T-shirts floating around at these cons that I go to. Yeah,
I mean, Gal Gadot could play that character probably, but people wouldn't like it.
Well, I think Nucleon was a guy too.
Yeah, that's also a problem.
That would probably put her off a little bit.
Yeah, good. Well, you never know. But I'm speaking of kind of working with people and these collaborators that you had. You and I remember hearing this from Walt. You were in a studio with Chaykin and Walt Simonson.
Yeah, and Val Merrick and Jim Sherman.
That's right, Val Merrick.
Their studios, we called it.
Now, what does that got to be like? You got a bunch of creators in a room. Is it all like fun and games? Are you helping each other out? Is it just everybody's got their own space? Like, how does that work when people are doing something like that?
We all had our own space, and it was it was terrific. I mean, I learned so much from Chaykin as far as paints go.
Mm-hmm.
Just the mechanics of it. Walter was just the most amusing person to share a studio with, because amusing and annoying, because he would talk out his stories and incessantly and not get them done. And he would tell you everything about what he was going to do. And then finally, like 3 days before the deadline, he would just have to just jam through and keep doing it. And you wouldn't see him. He'd be behind his, we all had bookshelves and stuff to hide behind. And so, but the infuriating part was that he would tell you everything. And when he was working on the Alien adaptation with Archie Goodwin, I thought, now we went to see the movie finally, and I said, well, I'm sure there's things he didn't tell me. And everybody else in the movie is jumping out of their seat and shocking him, going, fuck, Walter, you told me that already. And everything about this movie, there's no surprises, there's no shocks. That was different.
That's
and Val and Val Merrick was, we had him in there for a while, Jim Sherman. It was a good studio. When I left, Frank Miller came in and took my place.
Wow.
So that was a good studio while it lasted.
It's a really nice. I say this out of complete ignorance. There's not that kind of desire to have an artist studio. Is there much of that you know of today, or it feels like everybody's kind of dispersed?
The last time I heard of it was Cross Gen Comics, where the whole thing was based on having a communal studio down there in Florida. That sort of fell through the roof, fell apart once the owner sold the thing to Disney, and everybody suddenly found themselves out in the street. But, that's another story.
As Disney does, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like with a lot of the, you think about mentoring new people coming up and kind of the ability to kind of help each other out. It would be a place where you could get some good support and do things. Really cool that you had that experience.
Yeah. Now I work by myself, just got a room. I got a studio up in the house. So, none of that, but that's the younger person's thing. Once you get a little bit older, you like the solitude.
Yeah.
Done now.
Yeah. I understand. I've been that way since I was 18. I
don't want to, you get older, you don't want to share.
No. I'm curious. So the people obviously listening to this can't see it, but behind you, I see your drawing table, and you are drawing something right now. There, it looks like.
Yeah, it's a Dreadstar page.
And this is traditional pencil ink, and you're doing it. Have you tried digital art? Do you have any desire to do that?
I do the coloring on all digital, but I like the analog. I send this out after I get the pencils done to very talented Jamie Jameson out there in LA, and she inks it up and then scans it, sends it in, and we'll do the coloring and that from there.
Yeah,
but I like the pencil, and I mean, there are some things that I'm doing different. If I really want to work up the lighting and that, they have these computer programs like that, studios where I'll work up the figure or something like that beforehand. And take a picture of it with my phone, and
off you go.
I end up, well, I'm not going to show you anything because you're not going to see it anyhow. I'm sorry to show you one of those photos. But why bother?
Yeah. No, I think, do you think there's anything lost for people who have gone full digital for the original rendering? We've talked to a lot of artists who have very passionate feelings one way or another. And what I don't often hear is if I go digital, I'm just drawing that way. It's just so much faster for me. I can churn a lot more pages out. And if I'm working for Marvel, where, I've got to get 22 pages out, it's more of a conveyor belt type thing. It's efficient. But is there, obviously you picked the analog side of the world because that's what works for you. But do you have it? Has anybody that kind of gone in that? I think Ron Lim went to do more digital, didn't he? Or
I have no idea on that. I haven't seen Ron since the pandemic started. We haven't connected up any conventions, but I'm not, I'm not a Luddite by chance. I brought.
Well, you're coloring digital.
I jumped at the computers as soon as they came in.
Yeah.
I started scripting out of one of those Mac Pluses.
Mm-hmm.
But I see it as anything that's out there that will help you do the story. Why not give it a try? I'm playing around a little bit with the AI stuff right now, throwing it into an occasional background and stuff like that, just because I want to see how it'll work. I want to see what it'll look like. I'm not one of these defenders of the buggy whip. I'm from Detroit, so I know that we replace things as we go along. And the other people who are freaked out about the AIs right now, I don't see that as going to be ever replacing us, because every study that I show that human creativity is infinite.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see from what is being put out there with the AI is only as good as the programmer or there's a new term for it.
It's the generation of the machine learning, the algorithms, the things that they're doing to put it together. I mean, ultimately, it's got to be fed by your imagination.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another tool.
I'm curious, and I could see Joe has a question, but I wanted to ask you. A couple of years ago, you injured your hand, and it was
a big hole in it.
Yeah, I mean, really injured your hand.
Yeah.
Was there a moment like I'm just that's going to be pretty critical to doing to do pencil and paper and putting the artwork out. You obviously rehabilitated your hand. What were you going through at the time? Were you thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get back to it, or were you fighting?
There were 3 years I couldn't draw.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just 3 solid years where I was just writing Thanos stories instead. In fact, I have to, I've told the story before, I'll tell it again now. I have to thank my inker for getting me back into it. Jamie was working with Keith Giffen and doing some inking for him. And but she is a big Dr. Doom fan. And so she started, well, she first off got Spencer to ask me if I would do a Dr. Doom. And I went, Dr. Doom? Come on, if I'm going to draw anything, it's going to be Thanos. But she kept at me, and every time she saw me at a convention, she'd say, can you just try it? See if you can get this drawing. See if you can do me a Dr. Doom. In the meantime, I was doing all these exercises with stretching and squeezing the rubber balls constantly as I was watching movies or something. And just before then, I had been digitizing, doing the collections for omnibus for the Dreadstars. So I was doing a lot of remastering the colors on all the pages, and I was working with a stylus on there. And the stylus, you hold a lot easier. I mean, it's more gently than you do a pencil because you're not actually pressing down. And so I did realize I was doing more therapy as I was going along. And finally, one night after a convention that Jamie had been bugging me about Dr. Doom, I went back to the room and I said, okay, shit, I'm going to see if I can get this out of the way. And sat down there and did this drawing, just a headshot of Dr. Doom, and my hand didn't cramp up like it had been. I didn't have to go find a bucket of ice to stick my hand. Shit, maybe I've actually gotten to a point where I can try this again. And so I started doing little sketches to sell at conventions. And as it happened, Jamie, who was sitting at the table next to me, Keith didn't show up, and she didn't have anything to do. So I said, well, why don't you ink a couple of these things while you're sitting around here? We'll split what we sell on it. And she did a real good job on it. And the deal was a few tables down and came down and looked at it and said, why don't you two do Metal Men cover? And that's where we started working together. And now she's inking all my Dreadstar stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I kind of owe her. She sort of, in her own annoying way, she got me back in the drawing.
Her and Dr. Doom, they saw.
Yeah, it's still Dr. Doom.
Yeah.
She still doesn't have any class as far as her liking of villains.
No, I mean, it's
I like Dr. Doom too, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah. It's an awesome story coming back from an injury that was quite bad. And then, not only, getting back to doing what you love, but now you're doing it for yourself, and you have this Kickstarter, you did the Dreadstar Kickstarter, you're putting more and more things out.
It's a lucky cartoonist around, easily.
Yeah.
I didn't know what fortunate the son of a bitch out there. Yeah. I have no doubt about it.
And sitting on the fact that you crafted the story that became the centerpiece of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and a lot of cosmic work. It's like I said before, it's stunning, kind of the amount of contribution you had, and the fact that so much of it. I see a lot of creators struggle to write stories that they're hoping can go to Netflix or go to the movies, and your stuff seems. It's obviously not a one-to-one translation, but there seems to be a more effortless path to get these things to the big screen, and they work. Thanos resonates with people in the comic. It resonates with people on the movie screen. In some cases, different audiences, and you were the brain behind all that.
Well, then I threw out some gems, and they ran with them. So I, like I said, very lucky. I'm trying to do the same thing with Dreadstar now.
Yeah. Are you trying to get that one onto the screen?
The smaller screen. I don't think it'd make a good movie. Okay. I have no interest in making a movie of it, but I'd love to make a series of it.
Yeah. Oh, it would fit really well there. Joe, you've gone through all these. Obviously, you've read a lot of these books. Anything I like?
Well, I mean, one thing I wanted to ask too, because I know we're getting up there in terms of time, is you were inspired or a fan of like Jack Kirby's Fourth World and some of the things he was doing there, and you got to play in that world with some of those characters, a few times in your career. What was it like? Getting an opportunity to work on like some characters and storylines that were more of a direct influence for you.
The only one that I was really proud of is the Cosmic Odyssey. There's a nice interchange between Superman and Orion and the Bug. The Batman too and the Bug is that thing. That was my I did a little run on the New Gods, but that didn't work out quite right. That had a lot of problems. I won't get into that. And other than that, all I did was I drew a story for Dan DiDio once on Forever People, but the Forever People they weren't my favorites. Out of that run, I liked the New Gods and the Jimmy Olsen stories the best, actually.
Yeah.
And the Forever People and Mr. Miracle, they were nice, but they didn't ring the bells for me like the New Gods did.
Yeah.
So any comics you really, I mean, I think you seem very happy doing your own stuff and you're your own boss, and when you get that working and they're successful, why would you willingly go back into kind of one of the big corporations? But any characters, if you could write kind of your one big story for somebody, is there anybody you'd really like to put your thumbprints on again?
No, I'm just going to do Dreadstar. That's it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I've had a mixed history with both of the companies, so I really don't have any desire to go back there and do anything like that again. Well, even if it's Robin they're offering me.
Okay, they're offering you Robin, and you got to kill them off good this time. All of them. They're going to put it's the Robin's book, and it's all.
Well, that's the job that really doesn't have a long shelf life, does it? How many have they gone through at this point?
I mean, well, enough that I think they've put out books called Robins where they're all sharing an apartment together. So I mean, I think once you get to a reality TV show of Robins, you've gone too far. It's time to start killing them off.
Yeah, well, when I was a kid, I loved Edgar Rice Burroughs, both the Tarzan and the John Carter stuff. And when they brought the kids in, I thought the stories really went downhill. And it's always been my sort of private peeve that, once you start bringing the next generation in, that means the storylines, you're not being creative enough to keep the stories going on the main character. You're watering things down, and bunch of Robins. I have no interest in now.
I feel like this question wanders on bait for some people, but I honestly don't mean it that way. You did the Death of Captain Marvel book, and then since that time, Marvel has gone back with multiple other Captain Marvels. Is that a case where they had their own identity, or were you done with that book and you kind of told your story, and then Marvel continued to reuse that mantle over and over again? Did you have a
shooter approached me and said, "We don't know what to do with the character." I think that the sales on the follow-up books after I left Captain Marvel were really bad, and they said they said, we're going to kill him off and bring him back as a female. And very much what they ended up doing at the movies and that, So I know it was Photon originally, but basically it was always Captain Marvel was supposed to be replaced. And I was glad to come in and do that story. I'd actually tossed out about 3 or 4 plots before I settled on what I did on that finally.
Maybe it would have been helpful if they would have put a suggestion box in the Marvel headquarters for how you could kill him properly.
Well, apparently, from what I've been told, all the assistant editors, when they turned into plot finally, they all hated it.
Really?
Only Jim Shooter who said, "We're going to do this."
Yeah.
Apparently, a number of the other editors said, "No, he's got cancer. We want him to die heroically." like they'd done every other one. And Jim had the good sense to say, hey, let's do this.
I think the answer's in there with the like we've done every other one is kind of the clue not to do it again.
There's a certain mindset that wants to see something that they recognize.
Yeah, that was fair.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Look at network television.
Yeah, well, we may never copy anything there. Listen, I think, first of all, we got a lot of your time, and I really want to thank you for that. I wanted to at least wrap back around, once again to your project.
Yes, Breed. Please back Breed.
Please back. So it's a lot of, so first the omnibus, it's just to get all the details of it, it is everything. It's the complete series in one.
Yeah.
Really nice, nice color, nice format.
Original drawings that Breed was originally supposed to be an illustrated novel.
Yeah.
Completely different what it was. And we're going to throw in some of that the original drawings for that.
That's awesome. So a couple goodies there, hardcover, really nice format to put on the shelf. It's available with Zoop. By the time this goes out, if you're listening to this now, campaign should be active.
You should be able to knock a cow out with it if you want.
Perfect. Yes. That's what you want.
That's a good starting.
You got to be able to kill somebody with a book. That makes
and it's a very it's a fun. Fun's the wrong word, but it's a very violent book. I think people will very enjoy the violence.
Knocking out cows, yes.
Yeah,
there's the horns involved too. Yeah,
it's a good book. I mean, it's a really good story.
Yeah.
And I think, again, if you've been listening to this the entire time, you're talking to a guy here who's, put out some of the most major comics that you can remember.
We've hardly talked about Breed at all.
We did. We should have talked about Breed. Oh, tell it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not really good at just promotions.
No. This is like
it's fine.
The purpose is, first of all, I got to know you, which is awesome. And then, but second, you're hitting these legendary stories that people have read. I've used that word again. And so it's a chance to see, you kind of dip your toes, like I said, into horror. It's a really powerful story. There's a sci-fi element to it too, but it's everything. You get just the entire volume in one. When you're putting together anything about the characters or anything that really kind of stuck with you, this has been one of your books you've really, I would say enjoyed. That's a weird word, but this is something that you have a lot of pride for.
Yeah, at the time I was doing it, I was claiming it was my favorite character. Period. I was having so much fun with him. I remember having dinner with Jim Lee, and him and I having an argument that I was going for Breed and he was going for Dreadstar. He said Dreadstar was my best, and no. I've come to agree with him, but since then.
I mean, Dreadstar's great, but with this, I think it's anyone who likes sort of the direction that some of the maturing of stories was going in the 90s in terms of, for a slightly older audience, violent, but also thoughtful in a way that I think a lot of comics that were contemporary at the time weren't as, thoughtful. And I think you evoke a lot more in that than some of the other stuff that was coming out at the time. So I think read it.
It doesn't have happy ending.
No, but I think for people,
I think that's probably not a strong selling point, though, is it?
No, I think it is. Frankly, yeah. People like the unhappy ending. I think it's you look at some things that are kind of getting a second life right now, like Berserk and others, from different genres. This is a powerful story by a master storyteller. I'm gonna look absolutely great. You've gone through and adjusted. You've put some original art in there. I mean, it's a great package. I think people would be crazy not to buy it.
Yeah, you're living God's year.
Yeah.
Well, look, I really hope people support the book. At another time, I'd love to talk more with you. One thing I meant to ask you about, but I mean, I didn't want to take up all the time, is I wanted to ask you more about when you were a photographer in Vietnam, and did that experience also translate and kind of push you into comics? So I don't know if you've been asked that before, but I was curious.
Well, I worked for an intelligence outfit, and we had a lot of out-of-stock paper that just happened to be 11 by 17. And so a lot of my my samples, when I finally got work up at Marvel, were done on the backs of these.
Wow.
And I remember John Romita Jr., or John Romita rather, looking at the paper and going, "What are you working on here?" And I had to explain what it was, and he went, "I think we're going to have to get you some Bristol board."
Some commitment.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Look, I could talk on and on with you. I think, again, you're an amazing person, and I love your story, and I love that you came back from the injury and just all the things you've done. It's really incredible. So thank you. And I really hope people go and click on the link below. You'll see it in the comment description of this video. You can search for it. However you want to get there, just get there and back this book.
Yeah, I'll put something on my Facebook page and that, so people find it that way.
Yes. Get there, back it. Jim, again, thank you so much for all your time, and best of luck with the campaign. We'll be backing it.
Thank you. All right. You guys have a good one.
You too.
You too.